I want to give a shout out to all of my patrons. Thank you so much for all of the continued support. Hey everybody, I am back with my list of the top fantasy books according to my viewers. I have been going through a top 100 list, and we are down to number 60 through 41. So before we start, I want to say that if you want to talk about any of these books, you want to talk spoilers, go into details, come join my Discord channel. It is the fastest growing adult fantasy Discord around. Hundreds of new people every month, and I would love to have you. So let's jump right into it with number 60, and number 60 got 17 votes, and that is A Wizard of EARTHSEA. This is book number 1 of 6 of the EARTHSEA cycle by Ursula K. Le Guin, and I have not read this one. And this is mainly due to the fact that I didn't really start reading fantasy until I was an adult. And this is a YA series that is mostly initially read by younger audience, at least for the first time. It is high fantasy. It introduces the characters to a character named, introduces the readers to a character named Sparrowhawk, who attends a wizard school where he learns all of the words and spells that make him one of the most powerful wizards in all of EARTHSEA. While it is a seminal work of fantasy, I'll probably never get around to reading this one, but maybe someday. And I do think it is in my list on my Patreon for the raffle. So every month on Patreon, everybody gets to put a book in a raffle, and I spin a wheel, and whatever gets picked, I have to read in reviews. So that's probably the only way that I'm going to end up reading this one at this point. At number 57, we have a three-way tie with 18 votes. And the first of that three-way tie is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. This is book number 4 of 7 of Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. And this is another one that I have not read, and for the exact same reason as EARTHSEA. And although I did not see this, read this, I did see the movie, so that counts, right? This book follows Harry's 4th year at Hogwarts, where he finds himself competing in a very hazardous tournament between rival schools of magic, and he's distracted by recurring nightmares. I can't really go into too much detail here because I'm sure that almost all of you could better say what this book is all about than me. I'm just kind of going off what I watched in the movie. Also tied for number 57, the second of that three-way tie with 18 votes, is Malice. Malice is book number 1 of 4 of The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. John Gwynne is one of my all-time favorite authors, and this is one of my all-time favorite series. I gave this one a 5 out of 5, as I did for all 4 of The Faithful and the Fallen books. And while the action doesn't really pick up in this one till near the end, it doesn't really let up throughout the next 3 books, which is a reason that you might see those books later on in this series of books. The slower introduction to these characters and the setting and the themes of the story are very important and still very fun from start to finish. It's very heavy on this religious prophecy trope, which is super popular in fantasy, but it's done exceptionally well and one of the best takes on religious prophecy that I have ever read. And truly a must-read for any epic fantasy fan that maybe likes things with a little bit of that older soul to them with a newer twist. And the last of that three-way tie at number 57 with 18 votes is A Little Hatred. This is book number 1 of 3 of the Age of Madness trilogy, which is in the greater First Law world by Joe Abercrombie. So the first book in the second trilogy in the First Law universe is a brave move by Joe Abercrombie because it takes this world that is so beloved by the fans and where fans just wanted the series to keep on going. But it follows the next generation of characters. So there's very few characters that are the same between these two series. There are some, but it's rare. And this is not a common thing to be able to pull off as well as Joe Abercrombie did. I gave this one an easy 5 out of 5 stars, but somehow Abercrombie here, in my opinion, improved upon the foundation of that first trilogy in basically every way. This is a dark fantasy series that follows, wonderfully crafted characters. It's got this ingenious plot. It's just got writing that's absolutely to die for. Plus, an added bonus is that if you're an audiobook reader, you won't find a better narrator than Stephen Pacey. So definitely try that one out. And if you've already read these books and you want to do a reread, switch to the audio format and you will thank me later. Or you can just thank me now. That works too. So at number 55, we have a two-way tie with 19 votes. The first of those is The Drawing of the Three. This is book number 2 of 8 of The Dark Tower by Stephen King. And I'm actually in the middle of reading this one right now. I've read about a third of the book. Having completed the first in this series a couple months back, I'm going to hold off on giving my opinions on this, but it continues the story of the Dark Tower, which talks about this guy, Roland Deschain. He is Midworld's last gunslinger, and he's traveling southeast to Crowd Midworld's post-apocalyptic landscape, searching for this powerful but elusive dark tower. This one is actually set more in an urban landscape and heavily involves multiple timelines and dimensions, but I don't want to say much more for fear of spoiling things in the series that is so beloved by so many people. And last at number 55, in that two-way, in the tie with 19 votes, is Empire of the Vampire. This is book number 1 of this series, and the second one is going to be coming out in 2024. This is by Jay Kristoff, and I absolutely loved this book when I read it last year and gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It tells the story of Gabriel de Leon, who's a vampire hunter. In the first chapter, he's held hostage by this incredibly powerful vampire and is forced to tell his life story, which turns into this epic tale that totally changed my mind about vampires as a fantasy creature. Before this, I thought they were rather silly, not scary in the slightest, but this is written wonderfully, and I cannot wait for the next book to come out in 2024. And it does nicely with that framing narrative that has been popular for a long time, but I think in more recent, or relatively recent, because the book hasn't come out forever, but in the Kingkiller Chronicle, The Name of the Wind, they use that same framing narrative, and it works really well in both these books. At number 53, there is a two-way tie. With 20 votes, we have Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This is book number 6 of 7 of the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling, and another Harry Potter book, which means I have not read it. Nor did I see the movie this time, though. I think I stopped at movie number 5. This is the final Harry Potter book on the list, which makes this the favorite of the series according to my viewers. The story follows Harry's 6th year at Hogwarts as he receives this mysterious textbook. He falls in love and attempts to retrieve a memory that holds the key to Lord Voldemort's downfall. But again, I'm sure that you know much more about this book than I do. Then at number 53, the last in that two-way tie is A Feast for Crows. This is book number 4 of 5. There are 7 planned. We'll see if we even get the 6th one, let alone the 7th, of A Song of Ice and Fire. And this is by George R.R. Martin. So this is everybody's least favorite A Song of Ice and Fire book. Well, not like everybody, but a large majority. This book suffered from being only half of the story, with the other half being A Dance with Dragons, and both of them suffered for this. There are other reasons that it suffered, namely the pacing and the plot getting a little bit too out there, with too many plot lines and not enough time spent with individual characters, and the inability for George R. R. Martin to be able to successfully weave these plot lines together over time. They just kind of keep separating without that ability to kind of come back. If these books were combined, I think they would have been met with much higher favorability, but they were not. I quite liked it. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. On a reread, I might upgrade that because I look back on it very fondly, but we'll see whenever I get around to doing another reread of that. I can't really say anything about this that would, without spoiling everything, because they were so far in the series, but there's a good chance you've either read this or seen the major events from the TV show, so you probably aren't missing anything from me not talking specifically about this. But for those that haven't, I don't want to spoil anything. Then at number 48, we have a 5-way tie with 21 votes. And the first of those is Small Gods. This is a standalone book in the Discworld universe by Terry Pratchett. And this is my personal favorite Discworld book, but not yours. Or maybe you, but the greater you. You'll have to wait till next week to hear about that one, although if you know about Discworld, you know what it is. I gave this one an easy 5 out of 5 stars, and it's probably the most easily accessible Discworld book due to it being a bit of a standalone in the Discworld universe. In the Discworld universe can be pretty intimidating because it's over 40 books long. Yeah, they're short books, but that's just a staggering number for most readers. This one tells the origin of the god Om and his relations with his prophet, the reformer Brutha. In the process, it satirizes religious institutions, people, practices, and the role of religion in political life. I find that even if you're religious or not religious, you'll find an equal amount of appreciation for this book for different reasons, which has got to be a very hard thing to pull off. So bravo, Terry Pratchett. There's a reason you got knighted, apparently. And not to mention, this book is downright hilarious, and it is a must-read for pretty much everybody, whether you're a fantasy reader or not. Then, the next in that 5-way tie at number 48 with 21 votes is Rhythm of War. This is book number 4 of 4 with 10 planned of the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. And this is, again, everybody's least favorite Stormlight Archive book. Not really, but in general, I think that's the common thing that you will hear. This continues the massively epic story that is far too complicated to summarize in the minute that I give myself for each of these mini reviews. Stormlight Archive is without a doubt the most popular fantasy series out right now, and given how many books there are going to be in this series, I suspect that this is going to stay the case for an extremely large amount of time. I think Brandon Sanderson is getting more popular right now, not less. I've found that when talking about this series with people, that some people are hesitant to start this series due to it being so popular, and not wanting to fall for the popular, it thing right now. That's nonsense. Go read this. You will be very thankful that you did. Next up in that 5-way tie at number 48 with 21 votes is Midnight Tides. Midnight Tides is book number 5 of 10 of Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. This is another 5 out of 5 from me, and one of my favorite books. But then again, all of Malazan Book of the Fallen can be described like that, so I don't know if I'm really saying anything here. This book is the second time in the Malazan series where the book takes place on a brand new continent with entirely new characters. It can be a bit jarring at first, but this is a wonderful story on its own, and probably the most cohesive plot from beginning to end in the entire 10-book series. Plus, it introduces my favorite Malazan character, Bug. Next up in that 5-way tie with 21 votes is Fool's Fate. Fool's Fate is book number 3 of the third trilogy called Tawny Man in the Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. And surprise, surprise, another 5 out of 5 from me. This was originally going to be the final book in the series, I believe, but she ended up extending it for 7 more books. The series felt like mind-boggling slow up until this point. But it was so worth it because this is absolutely a fantastic tale from start to finish. I can't spoil anything, but if you want a book and a series with the top of the top in terms of characters and prose, look no further than Realm of the Elderlings. Next up in that 5-way tie, the last of the 5-way tie is also from Realm of the Elderlings, and this is Assassin's Fate. This is number 3 of the final trilogy called Fitz and the Fool, so the last book that came out in this series by Robin Hobb. And this is an easy 5 out of 5 for me once again. Shocker, I know. And I'm kind of actually shocked that this book is not higher up on this list. This was an incredible ending to this wonderful 16-book series that brought out all of the feelings and tied up everything in just such a gloriously wonderful way. Not just tied up everything from this book and this miniseries, but bringing in past books and making them able to be more appreciated on a reread is just a wonderful, wonderful thing that Robin Hobb was able to do. And it's the reason why so many people have this book as their favorite Realm of the Elderlings book. Next up is, with 23 votes at number 43, The Shadow of the Gods. This is book 1 of 2 with 3 planned from the Bloodsworn trilogy by John Gwynne. And I guess I just gave all 5 out of 5s at this point, because here is another one. The first in this new series, after John Gwynne finished The World of the Banished Lands, which it comprises both The Faithful and the Fallen and Of Blood and Bone. This one is a Norse-inspired fantasy epic. It's a multi-POV tale that is darker in tone than his previous works, and it's got just the most incredible of battle sequences, which John Gwynne is particularly known for. I think he's the best at it. It's set in this world where the gods have long since died, but there are forces at work to try to bring them back. Just awesome stuff, and a great intro into John Gwynne if you haven't gotten into him yet. Next up in that 5-way tie with 23 votes is Ship of Magic. This is book number 1 of 3 of the second trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings called Live Ship Traders by Robin Hobb. And this is my favorite of the Realm of the Elderlings trilogy. It's not my favorite book, but my favorite trilogy. So it also gets another 5 out of 5 stars. This is a switch of pace from the single POV stories following Fitz from the first trilogy, and it tells a new story in a new location that loosely ties in with the other books. This one is chock full of amazing characters and a much quicker plot than the previous books. In this book, people have magical ships that can talk, which I swear is more interesting than it sounds. You will instantly fall in love with some characters, then come to hate others, and then get your opinion on all of them kind of twisted up in classic Robin Hobb way. I'm tumbling my words here. This video has been going on a while. Then, next up in this 5-way tie with 23 votes is Gardens of the Moon. This is book number 1 of 10 of Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Didn't, love it my first time. I really liked it, but I didn't love it. In part because it's so dang confusing. It just drops you into this world without any hand-holding, and I don't say that in a negative way. I say it in a positive way, but it really just throws you in the deep end and says, you'll figure it out over time. Trust me. And I did, but it's hard. It's hard to read fast. You really got to slow down to take everything in. At least I did. Maybe some others can fly through it, but I certainly could not. I do find myself looking back on this wondering, when I do a read of this, which is hopefully soon, at the latest next year, I suspect I'm going to love it because all of these characters are going to make sense to me. All of the plots are going to make sense. And I'll be able to really appreciate this book for what it is. But it's the start to my favorite fantasy series of all time. So it's got that going for it. Then at number 43 again in this 5-way tie is Changes. Changes is book number 12 of 17. And who knows how many are planned, of the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. And Dresden Files is this story of a magician detective. I give this one 2 out of 5 stars, which is shocking for most people because most people have this one rated as their favorite Dresden Files book. Now, I don't know that my rating is really fair because I was just kind of burnt out on Dresden by this point. And so this was my I'm burned out score. But I don't love Dresden Files. It's written in this kind of noir writing style that I've never really been a big fan of. And I don't particularly like Dresden himself. I personally find him to come off kind of like a neckbeardy white knight, not charming, not what I'm into when I'm looking for a hero of a story. And he's not an anti-hero either. He's supposed to come off like a hero, but I just don't love him. So it takes my enjoyment from the book and removes it a lot. I typically also like third-person perspective. Not always, but a lot. And this is first person. But so many people love this series. And there's a reason that people think this is their favorite Dresden Files book. Then at number 43, the last of that 5-way tie with 23 votes, is A Dance with Dragons. A Dance with Dragons is the 5th of 7 planned of A Song of Ice and Fire, the last one that came out, and it came back forever ago. And this is by George R.R. Martin. And I also give this one 4 out of 5 stars, like I gave A Feast for Crow 5 out of 5 stars. It just felt like the writing quality was the same, if not, improved. The problem with this book is that the plotting is just getting, all over the place. I don't have a stat in front of me, but I guarantee that there are more point of views at this point. you spend less time with each character, and it feels like things are just moving in different directions. And that George R.R. Martin does not have the ability to kind of bring it all back together, which is clearly true because he can't finish the next book because it's so hard. He's kind of written himself into a bit of a knot. And if you're a fan of *Songs of Ice and Fire, you know that I'm using that term very intentionally. Then at number 42, we have 24 votes for Best Served Cold. This is the first of a standalone in the First Law universe by Joe Abercrombie. And this is going to be turned into a movie. I don't know how soon, but soon, which is awesome. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, and I wonder what I'll do on a reread, which I'm going to do in the relatively near future. I'm going through First Law right now, just finished the first one, A Blade Itself, and I'll get to this one relatively quickly. But this tells a classic revenge story where a character has a bunch of people that have wronged her, and she swears to kill them all. And so the book just kind of, it's very clear what's going to happen. There are some twists, as there always are in fantasy books, but in First Law specifically. But it's just chapter after chapter of her going through and trying to kill the people that she swears to kill. That's the plot. And not what I'm used to in the First Law. I'm used to things that are a little bit more vague, things that are a little bit more epic in scale. And this was not it, but I am looking forward to trying this one again. Then at number 41, with 24 votes, we have The Trouble with Peace. This is the second of the second trilogy for the First Law and Age of Madness by Joe Abercrombie. And I just absolutely love this story. I so love Abercrombie's telling of a revolution type story. And it's probably the best that I've ever read with that is its core in the fantasy genre. It's so well done. It just feels simultaneously real and joyfully ridiculous. The cast of characters in this series is every bit as good as the first cast in the first trilogy, and it really blows me away how Abercrombie continues to develop, truly unique characters who have like this healthy dose of gray to their moral compass, and it just feels incredibly, incredibly entertaining from start to finish. And it sets up an even better book in the last of the trilogy. So that is it for me. Next week, hopefully, I will be doing books number 40 through 21. And then finally wrapping up the week after that by doing 20 down to number 1. I hope you would enjoyed this. Come chat with me in the Discord channel at the link down below. And as always, happy reading to you. Thanks again to all of my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier and Librarian tier patrons: Anna G, Brian, CJ, Darren, Jonathan, My Book is Lit, Nathan T, Nev's Book Channel, Ron Reich, Russell, Ryan L, Anna, Andra, Angelo, Ben, Blair, Brock, Evan, Jen B, Harry B, Jamie, Jeff Pixler, Maria, Michael Sugarman, Sky, TW57, Wacky, and Zion.